My name is Silas, and I grew up without a father.
So, tell me about where you grew up and what the environment was like at your house.
I'm the youngest of four siblings. I don't really ever remember my dad being at home. I was probably around 2 years old when he left. So it was me, my two older brothers, and my older sister, and my mom. And I just remember we moved around a lot because we were pretty broke.
How did stresses of money play into your family dynamic?
Yeah, money is always a problem. I think as I've gotten older, I've realized I don't really have a proper view of money. I tend to, I don't know, maybe I'm scared of it, but it definitely was an issue for us growing up. I always remember just little things like you can't turn the AC on. We're just going to roll the windows down. It's like, how does that help? It's 100 degrees outside. This air is hot. So we can't use the AC because that burns more gas, which gas costs money. Even at the house, I remember during the summer when it was so hot. Can we turn the AC on? No, just open the windows. Same thing. It's hot outside. You're just putting hot air into the house. In the winter, don't turn the heater on. Everybody just, you can wear sweaters. Everyone's wearing sweaters in the house. And I just remember my mom was working multiple jobs. It definitely was, yeah, it was just always a subject of conversation. We never ate out. If we ate out, we went to Taco Bell, and you could get one bean burrito with no onions. Well, that was always our order. The order was four bean burritos, no onions, and one bean burrito with onions. That was my mom. She had that one. And it was always like a treat. It was a special treat if we got to go to Taco Bell on the way home from like church or whatever. And
Straight bean and tortilla.
yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a bean and cheese tortilla, but there's very little cheese in those things. But I'll tell you what, I love that bean burrito. It was like, it might as well have been a filet mignon for me.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about little Silas. What was he like?
Little Silas? Dang. I think little Silas craved attention for sure. Because when I was young, we were at our poorest. My mom was working multiple jobs, my dad was gone. And so I never got a lot of attention from my parents. And so I definitely wanted attention. I was super, super energetic. I probably had ADD as a kid, or I don't know. I don't know what the science behind that is, but I was crazy. I know I was crazy, but I never got on medication, and for that I'm thankful. But I just had so much energy, and I didn't get really any attention from my parents because they didn't have. My mom didn't have capacity, and my dad wasn't there, obviously. And so little Silas was pretty rowdy, but I think he was full of life. He really looked up to his brothers, and his brothers were pretty mean to him because he was probably really annoying. But I remember I just wanted to be like them. Yeah.
What were some of the ways that you would seek out that attention from your family members or other people at school or your peers?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is a random story. I don't know why this comes to mind. But I remember being like in second grade and the teacher asking us what time we went to bed. And I remember her saying like if you went to bed at, if you go to bed at like 7, 6, 7, whatever, raise your hand. And Some kids would raise their hand. Okay, what about 8? And I remember in second grade, I would have been like, I don't know, 6, probably 6 because I started school young. Yeah, I was probably 6 years old. I remember thinking, I want to be the last person to raise my hand so that I'm the only one. And whether or not it's true, it didn't matter. I was like, my objective here is to be the last man standing. And I remember I got to like 10 and I waited around, no hands went up. So I was like, because, and then she was like, 10? Really? Wow. Everyone's looking at me like, dang, you would have been late. Dang. I felt really cool. I felt like, yeah, I'm significant. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that at the time, but that's what I was doing. And so that story, I think, goes to show me that just any way I could stick out, any way I could be different. I needed so badly to have some attention, and I really wanted it from my parents. I didn't know it, because it wasn't ever there, really, you know.
Kind of walk us through the timeline of your relationship with your dad, just like because he was there when you were born, right?
I actually don't know if he was there when I was. Oh wait, no, he was there when I was born.
Okay, and that was in California.
Yeah, so I was born in Bakersfield, California. I was born at home. I remember that. Well, I don't remember that, but I remember being told that. And we couldn't afford hospital bills, so was born at home. And the only reason why I think, I'm assuming my dad was there is because what I've heard is he buried the umbilical cord in the backyard at my house. And I was born in a bathtub. But he was there, and then from what I understand, and a lot of the information I've learned about this has come in the last like few years of my life. But he left before I turned about 2 years old, and from what I understand, he was supposed to be gone for a couple of weeks. He was gone for a few years.
Where did he go?
He went back to the Philippines, I think. A lot of this is hazy. Like, I wasn't there. I don't know the full timeline. It wasn't even until the last few years that I wanted to learn this information. And so I kind of have pulled it out of my mom and other people. But from what I understand, he left, went to the Philippines, was in and out of my life. The last time I remember seeing him was, I believe, my 8th grade graduation. I think he was at my 8th grade graduation. I'd have been 14. And then that was the last time I ever saw him.
Do you remember like any of the things he ever said to you, or is it more just feelings you had around him?
The first memory that comes to mind, I don't remember a lot that he said to me, to be honest. But I remember being in the car with him one time, and we were driving. I look over to my right, and there was this kid driving this car. He's probably a little bit older than me, or in high school or whatever. He was old enough to drive. And I knew that kid's dad owned a Chipotle. And I remember saying to my dad, like, oh, I know that guy. His dad owns Chipotle. And I remember my dad was just like, that doesn't matter. Like, he's not an owner. He's just managing it. He's going to be gone one day. And I remember thinking, like, why did you need to say that? And now looking back, I'm like, well, he probably felt super insecure that he's been a crappy dad, hasn't been present, isn't really doing anything successful like that, if you will. Not that owning a Chipotle is the greatest thing in the world, but clearly he probably felt insecure and kind of shut me down on that.
So, what did your dad do for work?
What did he do for work? I've learned that he was very entrepreneurial. He was a lot like me, in that he was really excited about starting new things. At one point, he was in real estate. I think he actually was a pretty successful, like, real estate guy in San Francisco. And at one point, we actually owned a house in San Francisco before I was born. But then there was this big earthquake in San Francisco that kind of destroyed all the properties that he owned. In fact, I think he owned like 7 or 8 properties in San Francisco with some partners, which if we had those now, like we'd be multi millionaires, you know? But the earthquake happened in San Francisco and just like destroyed all the properties. And I think that's what really began our financial like downfall. But this is like all right around the time I was born or right before that. Yeah.
Um, when did you find out that your dad died?
I remember it was my sophomore year of high school. I woke up just like any other day of school, came out of my bedroom, and I was walking towards the kitchen. And I remember my mom just saying, "Silas, I have some sad news for you." I was like, "What?" She was like, "Your dad died last night." And I had just woken up, so I was kind of out of it anyway. And so I remember just being like, this, none of, like, it's just not, none of this is sinking in the slightest. I remember sitting down, looking at her and being like, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah." And then I just got up, didn't say anything, got ready for school, and went to school. And I remember at first period with Mr. Adams, world history, and we had a test to take. I didn't really do well on the test. I couldn't remember. I told my girlfriend at the time, and she was like more shocked than I was. It seemed like she was like, "Why are you just so nonchalant about this?" I think by that point I was 16 years old, and I had already spent however many years stuffing emotions from never having like really learned how to process my emotions with my mom or dad. So I didn't really have a response to that. I think the pain and the grief of it just exponentially increased throughout the next now 15 years.
When you first heard about it, how long had it been since you'd seen him? So it was eighth grade?
It had been 2 years. So, yeah, he never watched me play a football game. I remember that. It would have been 2 years.
Did you have like questions when you heard about it, or did you just like kind of close up about it and not talk to anyone? Because I feel like me, if I hear my dad has died, like I'd have so many questions and be.
I didn't ask any questions. I think I knew deep down that asking questions would only lead to more grief or potential grief, pain. And I think I chose the safer route at the time, which was to just not think about it. Just don't really think about it. Pretend like it just never happened.
Well, fast forward to present day, you flew all the way to the Philippines just to find out more about him. When did that, I don't know, interest or curiosity or care start to change in you?
Yeah.
What caused that?
I went through a divorce, and that really broke down every part of who I was, made me question who I am, question everything. And during that time of trying to heal from that broken relationship, I started digging and digging and digging for answers. Who am I? What's my purpose? Is what's true? That led me to realizing how much of the problems in my life have come from not knowing who I am and not really ever understanding what it's like to be loved, specifically by a father, because I think a father's love is the first love that you get. They're the ones that have been entrusted to show you that life is about love. Life is about connection. And I didn't get it. And so I think I just had like broken versions of that love in other ways. And so just all the issues in my life, the problems, the same stupid mistakes I would make over and over and over again. At 26, I went through that divorce and started peeling back layer after layer after layer of what do I believe, what's true, who am I? And dug, and at the end of the tunnel of digging was my relationship with my dad. And that's when I decided, like, I probably should look into this and figure out, I guess, heal. I should heal from this. There's some pain, there's some wounds that have been here for a very long time. They're hurting every part of my life. They keep coming back no matter how many relationships I get in or start over on. I think I'm on the right track. Keeps coming back up. I can't keep a relationship. I don't know how to be in a relationship. I don't know how to be okay if I'm not crushing it in life. I don't know how to be okay if other people are crushing it and I'm not. I don't know how to be okay with just being ordinary. All of those things were so heavy because the foundational message that I am loved and I'm enough by being alive, that never like landed in my head, or more importantly, my heart. Whereas my dad could have had so much power to be there and tell me that from the beginning. You don't have to do anything to be loved. I love you, period. Not because of what you do, not because of what you didn't do, but because of just who you are. And you are enough. I never heard those messages. So my entire life was this exhausting chase of trying to be enough, trying to be worthy of love. Yep.
I want to get more into like the experience of you learning more about your dad. But before we do that, I've heard you talk some before about how you believe that like your vices or your struggles that you've dealt with were maybe passed down to you from your dad. How does that work, even though you never really knew him? How have those things transferred?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in the same way that genetics are passed down, your facial features, your body type, even certain diseases are passed down through your parents physically. I think the same goes for just like personality and kind of the things that you're more bent towards. So for me, I take my personality. I'm pretty outgoing, very sociable, can be pretty charismatic. But I can also be super shallow, manipulative. I can start fast, but then give up shortly after that. And what's crazy is like, as I have gotten older and learned more about my dad, I started to realize that he was so similar in so many different ways. Sure, the personality thing and all, but I think one of the biggest things that I've learned that I am like my dad in is we both had this like big hole in our heart that needed to be filled with doing something awesome, something grand, significant in life. And to the point where we will get so distracted by trying to chase something shiny that we give up on the things that are most important, like family, relationship.
You think that's what killed your dad? That desire?
Yeah. I think what was his ultimate downfall was that he wasn't satisfied with the simple love of another person. He needed to do something great. He needed to do more. It was never enough. He couldn't be satisfied with just being faithful to a job, being faithful to a family, loving them. It just wasn't enough. He had to keep chasing another thing, the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. And I feel that in me. 100% I feel that in me. And I've had to work so hard, it seems like, to surrender that need to do something and just accept that I am enough. I am enough. I don't have to build something great. I don't have to do something crazy, extraordinary in order to be satisfied. And this concept or this truth that I can be fully satisfied and content just loving one woman, hopefully having kids, loving those kids well, being faithful to a job, doesn't matter how big it gets, but showing up and being faithful, I'm just like hanging on to that truth, like believing that this is true. Because my dad couldn't do it. And I think a big reason why he left our family was because things weren't going good and he was not satisfied just like going out, getting a job, working, providing for his family. He had to do something else. I need to get there quick too. That's another thing that my dad and I are very similar in. We want things to happen fast. Let's get it going. Let's get it. And if it's not happening fast enough, we abandon it. But there's nothing good and worth having that just comes quick. And that's where I think my dad and I were very similar. But I remember when I went to the Philippines this year, learning these things about him from his friends, from even a mentor that he had. And I remember this mentor saying, your dad just had this hole in him that he always needed more. I needed more. And this guy even told my dad to go back and be with his family. But I think he just like wanted to keep trying to get more.
What are some of the specific ways you've seen in your life yourself try to continue to get more or pursue things that aren't good for you?
Yeah. Boy. The first thing that comes to mind is relationships. So I was starved of emotional connection as a kid. And so I was always kind of girl crazy because girls give you that pass to being emotional without it being seen as weak. Like, it's like I get to tap into that emotional romantic side without being weak. And I was terrified of being weak, terrified of being vulnerable. So I was always girl crazy. But anytime I ever got a girl and we were together, it wouldn't last very long before I was wanting some other girl. Like, I needed the attention of that girl. Okay, now I got it, and I need the attention of that girl. And it's just this never-ending cycle. And that went from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship to even a marriage where her attention, her love was not enough for me. And I hate to say that, but it was true. I think that is a huge way that idea of never enough just like killed me. And then I could the same for any other thing. I played football, never scored enough touchdowns. You need another one. Now into the business world, I have to constantly fight that frustration or that fear, the pressure to grow more, make more money, do more things, rather than just being okay with where we're at while focusing on growing. So I'm for sure a work in progress on this. Yeah.
I've heard you talk before as well about your addictive personality. Does that come from your dad, do you think? And how does that show up in your life?
That. Oof. I'm sure that does. And I think I still don't really know how to process the addiction side of who I am. I think where I've landed today is that I am a man of great desire. And I think that desire can be used to fuel really good things, or they could be used to fuel really bad things. And so the addictive personality, I don't know if I fully like the language. It may be true or not, it doesn't really matter, but I have great desire. And if that's not in the right place, I'll go to terrible things. And historically in my life, that's looked like I discovered pornography when I was probably 10 or 11 maybe, and got addicted to that fast. And have fought through addiction with sexual addiction for 15 years. Yeah. So whether or not someone would label me or I would label myself as an addict doesn't really matter to me. I know that I have a personality that if I don't, or even say who I am as a person, that will do extraordinary things or terrible things. And addiction to pornography or sex or that realm is kind of how it's manifested partly in my life, but it's also manifested in other narcissistic ways, like where it's just all about me and I have to have all the attention. And it's like, there's tons of ways that energy in me can be used for terrible things. So pornography was a big one that I felt that I was just like, I got to feel this desire. I got to put this energy somewhere. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that energy is a good thing. Who I am, that like great desire is a good thing. If I see it as a bad thing, then I'll just feel shame. And then that shame pushes me more into unhealthy behaviors. But if I actually start to see that as a good thing, a gift that I can channel towards good things, then I don't feel shame about it, and I'm less likely to stumble into those areas. But for context, like I am in like multiple recovery groups. Like I did SA for a long time. I've done multiple different recovery groups. Every single day I'm probably sharing with at least one other guy where I'm at. Almost every single day, because if I don't, I'll slip down and I could do something absolutely stupid that will ruin my life tomorrow if I don't do those things. Because that energy is not going to go away, nor do I want it to go away. Because if it goes away, then I don't get to use that energy for good things. If it just goes away, then now I'm just the shell of a man. I don't want that.
You mentioned shame. How has shame looked in your life, and maybe what are some times in your life where you felt the most shame?
Ah, freaking F shame, bro. Shame freaking sucks. Shame is the worst thing. Shame is worse than any ways that I ever numbed myself. Like pornography sucks. It's bad. It's not good for me. Shame wrecks my soul. Kills it. Destroys who I am. I get lost in deception. It's just darkness. It's like utter darkness where I'm alone, isolated. Because what shame did for me was like, it made me go into this dark place where I'm alone and I can't actually get help. When shame owned me, or if it does own me, it's like takes away my ability to actually be helped. Because I'm getting too ethereal. I'll just give you a story. Like, when I was 11 years old, my mom discovered pornography on the computer. I'll never forget this day. I'm sitting in the living room. Me and my cousin are playing a game, and she walks out of her room where the computer was and says, "Silas, were you on my computer? Were you looking at bad things on my computer?" And at the time, I remember I didn't fully understand what I was looking at, but I knew that the thrill of what I was feeling was awesome. I loved the thrill, but I didn't know, like, I just didn't know how to process it, right? So when she first found that, like, and said, "Were you looking at bad things?" Like, I remember my heart dropping, being so terrified to look over, like terrified. And I remember kind of just like barely glancing over and seeing her face, and I will never forget that face. Like, it was a face of utter disappointment, disgust, like almost like if you just look at something that you're just like so disgusted at. And I remember thinking, this is the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life to this point. There's no question. I felt horrible. I felt like a just disgusting human being. I felt like there's something deeply wrong with me. And then the worst thing that ever happened in my life happened in that moment or around that time. I remember thinking to myself, this is the worst thing that you will ever experience. So whatever you need to do to avoid this forever, do that. Because my mom didn't talk about it. She kind of just like said that and then just didn't bring it up again. Like, I don't think she knew what to do. I think that's my freaking dad. If he was there, that would have been a great time for dad to step in and them talk about it and say, "Hey, it makes sense why this happened. Now let me go talk to him. Let me explain to you that sex is not a bad thing. Sexual things are a human thing. There's a place for it. This is not the place for it. You're okay. Like, I get why you're looking." Break that shame from me right there.
Yeah. What would have been different in your life if you had heard that?
Oh my gosh, bro. Okay, so how it played out, the shame, like I said, I made this decision like at 11 or 12 years old that this is the worst feeling in the world, which means that I'll do anything to avoid it, which means that I'm okay with lying, living in the dark, isolating, manipulating, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever horrible thing. Just don't feel that. And so that shame, I would look people in the eye like my whole life and just be like, "Oh, I never watched porn. No, I don't do that stuff." Like, it was insane. I got so okay with just lying about it, and those lies then invade every single relationship, every single one. And most importantly, you don't even know who you are anymore. You lose who you are when you are okay living in lies. And then you look in the mirror and you like hate yourself because You're constantly lying to yourself, and you're a fraud. You feel like a fraud. Anytime someone tells you something good about yourself, you think, well, you're only saying that because you don't know all this other stuff. And then when anyone says anything bad about you, it wrecks you because you're like, yeah, they're right. It's terrible. So to answer the other question of what would my life look like if I had a dad in my life who stepped in that moment, freed me from that shame, it would have been totally different. Totally different, I think. I'm not blaming this all on my dad, for sure. I probably would still have plenty of issues. But I'll tell you what, the things that have hurt me most in life aren't the ways I've acted out in pain. It's the ways that I've lied about the ways I've acted out in pain. Because I don't live in reality. And I think, yeah, so that'll probably answer it. What would have changed? I probably would have lived a more real, honest, authentic, whole life. I for sure would have been perfect, but I would have been more honest about it and actually had an opportunity at healing. And then all the relationships and people that I've hurt along the way probably would have done a lot less damage to other people.
When did you finally confront the idea that you need to be honest and open about things? And do you have any stories about?
The catalyst moment in my life probably was a year into my first marriage. We had been already together for like 4 years, and there had been many instances already where I wasn't fully honest because shame wrecked me. But we got married anyway, despite like a lot of those issues still being there, despite the fact that I was in no place to really love someone well. I don't know. And about a year in, I go back to the whole attention wasn't enough, and there was a time we were living overseas, and we were apart. She was back here, and I got into this text exchange, inappropriate text exchange with this old friend of mine from like back in high school, and I remember specifically trying to manipulate the conversation towards more sexual things to kind of get me aroused, and just wanted that attention, wanted that numbing, and that she ended up seeing that exchange, and then it like when she came back, it all came to this head, which that wasn't the first time I had done something sketchy like that. I had done other sketchy things too. But I remember just being like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't just keep living where I'm okay with half-truths. I'm okay with doing things that are sketch, but not ever actually getting to the bottom of them, kind of just brushing them aside. And so I decided I'm going to write out this letter of everything that I've ever done that I'm ashamed of, that I've never told anybody. Things that I thought, I'm going to go to the grave with this. But was like almost like the key to the shame that was crushing me. Because I was like, I'm not going to live like this. I don't want to live like this forever. This sucks. I'm never going to feel like I hated myself, and I was always causing destruction. And then I was too afraid to own it because I was too afraid of rejection, and like it's just nonstop, pile it on. And so I was just like, I'm gonna write this letter. I'm gonna just like lay it all out there, and I did. I literally wrote down every single thing, everything I was just totally ashamed of.
How long was that letter?
It took like an hour to read.
To read?
Yeah, 40 minutes. It probably took 45 minutes to an hour to read the whole letter. And honestly, like in the moment, she was really kind. She listened to the whole thing. But I think that kind of like broke it. Like she, at that moment, probably was just like, this guy just is not who I think or thought he was, which was totally valid. And that began to unravel. Like I think that was kind of like the tipping point where it's like, I think we need I think she was like, I think we need to just like end this. And that began like a 6-month process of separation and then eventually divorce. But the crazy part is like, it's like the best thing I've ever did. It ended up like I went through the most pain I've ever experienced in my life in that separation. A lot of it from just broken relationship with someone that I loved, that I was really trying my best to love, even though it was kind of crappy love. And just the pain of facing the reality of like my dark side, how dark I can get. But man, did I experience God's love for me during that time. Because I thought that if I just came fully clean, then it would fix everything with our relationship. This is the answer to fix it. What I didn't realize was that the bigger issue, my bigger problem was that I didn't really fully understand that God loves me with all my mess, with every horrible thing I've ever thought, every horrible motive I've ever had, every manipulative behavior, every narcissistic behavior, every crazy sexual desire, thoughts that I've had, things that I've done. God sees it all and loves me. And I think I understood it in my head, but it wasn't until I like put myself out there to another human being that I tangibly experienced like the reality is that a human being, she was totally justified in being like, we're not gonna do this anymore. And then it hit me. God knows, has always known this. In fact, he knows more than I'm even able to communicate. And yet he loves me so much that he would send his son Jesus to die for me so that we could be in a relationship, so that we could be connected. And that's when everything began to change for me. When I really began to understand God's love for me with how bad I am. And he just like doesn't even, he's just like, I love you so much. You don't have to earn my love. You don't have to do anything. And it was out of that place of feeling loved by him that I've been more free. I'm more honest. I'm more authentic. I'm more real. I'm able to have real connection with people. I'm able to look myself in the mirror and be proud of what I see. All of those things are true because of understanding God's love for me.
Do you feel like you kind of have like a grip on shame in your life today that it doesn't affect you as much anymore?
Yeah. I mean, shame can always creep in, you know? And I still, every day is like a day of monitoring my heart and like exposing places where I might feel shame. So like I don't feel shame anymore about the like Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition magazine when I was like 11 and I was hiding in my Lego box. I don't feel shame about that. I don't even feel shame about the ways I was a terrible husband. But there's times now where I might feel shame about, like even now, okay, I'm remarried and I feel shame when I'm not a perfect husband. And then I have to go to God and be like, God, like, I'm not a perfect husband. I don't love her the way I should. And then he has to remind me that I'm not perfect. I'm on a journey. Am I being honest? Am I showing up and doing things to be a better husband? Yes. Okay. Then like there's always going to be ways to love better and grow. but I don't have to feel shame about where I'm at. I'm okay. And so, shame does not own me anymore. Absolutely not. And I will not let it wreck me again. I will not let shame isolate me. I will not let shame convince me that it is better to lie about who I am and lie about what I've done or any of that than to be honest and be known. I won't let shame do that. That's a big difference.
Maybe this would be a good place to close. I want to hear. I heard you say something earlier about how when people would praise you when you were younger, like you wouldn't accept their praise because you felt like, oh, if you knew all this stuff about me, it wouldn't. You wouldn't be saying that about me. That I feel like is a very common human experience, more than people understand sometimes. Because I know I myself have felt that so many times in my life. What would you say to the person who's watching this right now, who is feeling that way, who in their daily life, they hear people say good things about them, but they're like, no, like if you knew all this stuff about me, you would not be saying that. Like if you saw the darkest parts of me, you would not be praising me right now. What is your message to that person who just feels like totally shameful and like enclosed in their own darkness?
My message to them would be the only way to live a life free from shame is to deeply understand and believe that God sees every single part of you. He sees your heart, He sees your thoughts, He sees your actions in public and private. He sees all of it. And He still wants to be your friend. Still thinks you're great. He still loves you. He sees it all. Psalm 139 is a chapter in the Bible, and it says how basically it's this whole thing about doesn't matter where I go, doesn't matter what I do, if I'm alone or if I'm in the public, if I'm anywhere, you know me 100%. And then Romans says that God demonstrates how much He loves us, that when we were at our worst, like the worst, the darkest, the ugliest part of who you think you are, He loved you so much, He loves me so much that He sent His Son Jesus to die. Why did He have to die? So that we could be united, so that we could be together. And to me, that's the only way that I was able to really be okay with who I am, despite all the darkness. Because when I really shared my darkness to another human being, there's a lot of consequences, and it led to a lot of pain and divorce. My healing wasn't going to come even if she was like, okay, great, I'm glad you were honest. Now I still love you, right? My healing wasn't going to come from that. My healing was going to come when I deeply understood that God sees it all, sees the past, sees what I'm going to do in the future, and says, I still love you. I still want you. And until His opinion matters more than anyone else's, then you're not going to be free from that fear of, well, if you only knew how bad I am, or the things I've thought, or the things I've done, then you wouldn't love me. Because maybe that's the truth. For humans, that might be the case. Humans will fail you, reject you, it will break. Human love will never be enough. The only answer is you have to deeply understand, believe, and most importantly, accept how much God loves you, despite knowing it all.
He's a perfect Father.
He's a perfect Father.
He can look at you when you've done your worst thing, say, hey, son, like, I understand why you would do this, but there's a better way for you.
God is the perfect Father that when you're 11 years old and you are curious about pornography, he pulls you aside, he puts his arm around you and says, "Hey, buddy, I totally understand why you want to do this, but I love you. There's nothing you can do that's going to make me not love you. I just want you to live the best life possible, and there's a better way for you. So let's walk through this together. And if you have questions, let's talk about it. Do you have any questions? Like, it's okay. This is not, you don't have to be, don't cover your head. Pick your head up. One of the things that will like absolutely wreck me, and I'll just like immediately start crying, is thinking about going to God after just doing something stupid and just like head down. And just imagining him like picking my head up. And just being like, pick it up. Like, you can look me in the eyes. Like, you can look me in the eyes. You don't have to be ashamed. Like, pick your head up. Like, that kills me. I never got that. But just like the concept of it is so crazy to me. It's so powerful. It's just like, God, my whole life I just like hid. Just head down. Do things and just like, I freaking suck. Why do I do this again? Why I keep doing this? I can't look at you. And him just like picking my head up and saying like look me in the eyes, like, I love you. God, that is just like so much. It's like overwhelming. It truly is overwhelming. But then like when I experience that love, then it just like makes me come alive. Like, I'm like, all right, freaking go. Like, if God loves me, then okay, I can do this. I can like, I can just be me. I don't have to be anything else. I'm cool where I'm at. I'm enough. Let's freaking go.
Yeah. I want to end by saying that I can tell that you're going to be a great father someday. You're not going to be a perfect father by any means, but just hearing your level of understanding of like where your father lacked in your life and how God fills in those holes.
10:30 a.m. prayer walk.
You're going to be a great dad. I can tell.
I'm gonna be a great dad, and I can't wait to be a dad. So this is good. I'm freaking sweating, bro. I'm freaking dripping. Look at this.